Welcome to the debate. When you buy a house, you hold the deed. If a pipe bursts or a light switch breaks, you don't need the original architect's permission to fix it. You just hire a plumber or an electrician.
Right, yeah, because the physical property is entirely yours.
Exactly. But if you're listening to this in your car right now, you might think you own it the exact same way. And the truth is, well, that traditional concept of ownership is fracturing.
It really is. You buy the chassis, you pay the taxes, you hire the mechanic, but suddenly you find yourself locked out of your own property because you lack the digital permission to fix it?
Yeah, and this tension is at the heart of the August 2026 Cascadia Prime editorial analyzing the automotive right to repair conflict. Today we're asking, when modern vehicles require digital permission to return to service, does manufacturer control over vehicle software genuinely protect safety and cybersecurity, or does it, unfairly limit competition?
Right. And I will argue that automakers are using cybersecurity as a pretext to establish market monopolies, and that standardized digital access is essential to preserve consumer choice and fleet viability.
And I will argue that because vehicles are complex cyber-physical systems, manufacturer control is a necessary safeguard against severe safety and cybersecurity risks.
I think everyone understands cars have computers now, right? But how does letting an independent mechanic replace a part genuinely threaten the vehicle's safety?
Well, to understand that, we have to drop this nostalgic view of a mechanic simply turning wrenches. A modern vehicle isn't just a mechanical object anymore. It's a rolling computer network.
Sure, but it's still a car.
But if you grant unrestricted diagnostic and software access, you aren't just handing over a paper service manual. I mean, you're giving access to the brains of a machine that can accelerate, steer, and brake on its own. In modern vehicle architectures, everything communicates on the exact same internal network. So if a third-party mechanic incorrectly programs a seemingly minor module, they could unintentionally overwrite the code that governs, say, collision avoidance. And the terrifying part? A bad line of code doesn't just crash a computer screen. It crashes a 3-ton vehicle into a wall, often without ever triggering a dashboard warning.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so the physical risks are simply too high for an open-door policy.
I get the theoretical danger, but the reality on the ground is that the fundamental right of ownership is turning into a functional rental agreement. You physically possess the vehicle, but the manufacturer holds the digital keys.
Well,
if we look at the Federal Trade Commission's 2021 Nixing the Fix report, they actually found very little evidence supporting these broad safety justifications for repair restrictions. I mean, they just didn't see it.
but that was 2021. The technology has...
Even so, the principle remains. When manufacturers lock independent shops out of telematics, which for our listeners is just the system that wirelessly transmits the car's diagnostic data, it creates massive dealer bottlenecks, it inflates repair costs immensely, and for commercial fleets, waiting on an authorized dealer just to get a digital handshake, that means catastrophic downtime.
I see why you think that, but let me give you a different perspective. We aren't talking about locking owners out of simple oil changes here. We are talking about security credentials that are absolutely non-negotiable for functions like immobilizer programming.
Right, the anti-theft systems.
Exactly. The actual encrypted code that tells the engine it is allowed to start, so thieves can't just hotwire it. And look at what happened in 2023. The National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, NHTSA, warned about Massachusetts's data access law precisely because it demanded open, long-range internet access to the car's systems.
Yes, they did raise concerns initially.
If you force manufacturers to build a remote portal accessible over cellular networks, you're creating a single vulnerability, one that could expose millions of vehicles simultaneously to malicious hackers.
I'm sorry, but I just don't buy that. Let me tell you why. You are pointing to NHTSA's initial hesitation regarding long-range wireless access, which, fair enough, long-range access sounds scary.
It is scary.
But NHTSA later explicitly clarified that short-range, owner-authorized access provides a workable, highly secure path. This is a method that requires the mechanic to be physically standing right next to the individual vehicle.
Okay, but short range?
We aren't advocating for anonymous hackers to have internet command access from across the globe. Security should be based on objective technical controls, authenticating the technician in the shop. It shouldn't just be based on whether a repair shop has a franchise dealer logo slapped on the building.
Right, but
A franchise dealer can experience a cyber incident or make a human error just as easily as a highly qualified independent technician.
short-range access solves the remote hacking issue, sure, but it does absolutely nothing to prevent unqualified hands from altering safety-critical code once they're plugged in.
If short-range access is technically feasible and secure, we have to ask why locking it down is causing such acute harm in the real world. We always talk about passenger cars in this debate, but the missing center here is commercial and vocational equipment.
You mean like heavy-duty trucks?
Exactly. Think about a concrete mixer or a propane delivery truck. These are highly specialized vehicles. They often combine a chassis from one manufacturer with a cargo tank, a pump, and a power takeoff from completely different builders.
Right.
Let me explain that last one really quick. A power takeoff, or PTO, is the complex mechanical and software bridge that diverts the truck's engine power to actually spin the concrete mixer.
Right. It's a highly integrated system.
It is. So, if a rural fleet has a disabled fuel truck reporting a fault in that PTO, forcing them to tow that heavy-duty equipment hundreds of miles to a distant chassis dealer just to clear a digital authorization code causes lost revenue. It causes massive supply chain delays. Independent heavy-duty shops keep regional fleets operating precisely because they can respond locally and they understand the whole integrated unit, not just the base chassis.
That's an interesting point, though. I would frame it differently. Think about the very complexity you just described.
Okay.
If a vehicle is a highly integrated network of different specialized parts, a chassis, a pump, a telematics system, isn't an independent mechanic attempting to reprogram a multi-stage vocational vehicle without OEM oversight akin to a guest blindly rewiring a smart home?
Wait, a certified heavy-duty diesel technician isn't a blind guest.
But they are a guest in a software architecture they didn't design. Think of a modern truck like a smart home, where everything runs on the same Wi-Fi router. The brakes, the engine, and the concrete mixer are all chattering on the same digital network.
Right, they communicate.
So an independent mechanic trying to recode the mixer without the manufacturer's blueprint is like someone rewiring your smart lights. If they cross the wrong digital wire, they don't just break the lights. They short out the security system and the fire alarms, because it's all one interconnected web.
I think that's a bit extreme.
But because commercial vehicles involve multiple layers of software from different builders, the risk of a calibration error is magnified. That mixed system complexity makes centralized, verified manufacturer control more vital for safety, not less.
Centralized control only works if the center can actually service the vehicle in a reasonable time frame. When an independent shop is blocked from doing the work, fleets sometimes keep older, less safe, and higher emission equipment on the road much longer, literally just to avoid the repair lockouts of the newer models.
And this is exactly why attempting to solve this through broad government mandates is so fraught.
How so?
Look at that Massachusetts 2020 data access law, which was upheld in 2025. It illustrates a genuine weakness in legislation. Product design changes exponentially faster than ballot language. If federal standards force automakers to standardize digital access for everyone, they risk creating a universal doorway for hackers.
A universal doorway?
Yes, because by standardizing, you force every manufacturer to use a uniform coding language or access portal. If a hacker learns to break that one standardized lock, they can suddenly unlock every make and model on the road rather than just one specific brand.
I come at it from a different way. Without a comprehensive federal standard, fleets and everyday consumers are trapped in a 50-state patchwork of conflicting laws, voluntary agreements, and product-specific restrictions. We don't need legislation that forces a single universal skeleton key.
Then what do we need?
We need legislation that mandates equal functional access utilizing a risk-based permission framework.
What does a risk-based framework actually look like in practice, though?
It means reading a basic diagnostic fault code, downloading a service manual, calibrating brakes, and updating propulsion software, are treated as entirely different tasks. They shouldn't require the same authorization.
Okay.
A risk-based framework uses verified, segmented permissions rather than a dangerous open-everything approach. If an authorized dealer can perform a repair function, an independent provider who meets the exact same objective security requirements should be able to obtain the equivalent capability.
I hear that, but ultimately, physical ownership of a piece of hardware simply does not negate the necessity of strictly controlling the digital permissions that govern it. Vehicles are cyber-physical systems. Maintaining manufacturer oversight over these networks is, well, essential to protect public safety on our roads.
And from my side, digital dependencies must not be weaponized to strip owners of their legal right to choose their repair provider. When a manufacturer uses software to lock out independent competition, it degrades the very concept of ownership and drives up costs for everyone.
It is clear from the Cascadia Prime material that we do have a point of convergence here. We both recognize that an open-everything approach is not real cybersecurity.
Exactly. And conversely, saying only the dealer can be trusted is not real competition. But we clearly remain divided on whether a federal legislative mandate can successfully thread that needle, to establish equal access without creating systemic vulnerabilities.
It really highlights the value of dissecting this intersection of technology, law, and commerce. As vehicle architectures continue to evolve, the definition of ownership itself will undoubtedly require further exploration within the source material. We'll leave the listeners to weigh the balance of safety and freedom for themselves.
Absolutely. We have to keep asking these hard questions about who truly controls the technology we rely on every day.
Which brings us back to our opening thought. If you buy a house, you expect to hold the keys to the front door. The question we leave you with today is, when you buy a modern vehicle, who is really holding the keys?